Thank you everyone for joining us in the Cloud Native FM podcast. And today we're talking about Azure Cloud Certification with my guest, Derek Smith. Thank you very much, Derek, for being on the show. And first, introduce yourself to the audience.
No, thank you for having me. Welcome, everybody. My name is Derek Smith. I am a Azure Cloud Evangelist and Director of Cloud Strategy over at a company called Trace3 here in the United States. So it's my job to help drive companies' overall cloud strategy, as well as identifying kind of cool emerging cloud tech that might solve some unique challenges within an organization.
Yes, thank you very much for introduction. And for next, like right now, what you're focusing on more because cloud we all know is gigantic. There is so much into the cloud. So, what is your current area of focus as of 2022?
I think my current area of focus as of 2022 has been primarily security. And I think just given all of the various events that have gone on over the year, and I continue to see them to increase over the remaining uh, latter half of the year. Yeah, security is, I think, a big area of cloud that a lot of people are diving into, and likewise you're seeing a lot of people invest money in security because it just seems like every other day some new major event or outage or something of that nature is occurring because of a security threat or security breach.
Yes, absolutely. And I think before when we be in the past, like in the virtual machine era, and transitioning into the container world, I think security is now gaining momentum. If you look at the CNCF at the container ecosystem, like we are always talking about what the code we are running in the container, and right now a lot of the enterprises consuming all of these container services in the form of Azure Container App, Azure Container Instances, or Azure Kubernetes Service. So I think it's been the hot area everywhere. If you are in the cloud or outside the cloud, security is right now the biggest concern of the enterprises. So today's our focus on being how to build a Azure Cloud Career. So can you tell us first of the tips? And also, like cloud is always being a shared responsibility model. It's not just giving everything to the Azure, but Azure require us to have some of the responsibility that we can understand, and then we can collaborate with each other in effective manner.
Yeah, to your first point, how to build an effective cloud career. It really is different for everybody, and it ultimately is going to depend on what area interests you the most. And I think that's probably step one. The cloud is such a, we were talking about earlier, such a wide umbrella, and there's so many different areas of focus that you could potentially go into. And I think for the struggle for a lot of folks who get into cloud is they feel like they have to know everything, and that just isn't true. You can get very focused in one area. So if data and AI is a huge focus or something that really interests you, right, you can really hone in and focus there. If security is something that really interests you, right, you can hone in and focus there. And the same can be for cloud native infrastructure, networking, you name it. So I think, to me, as I look at building my effective career or what I've built over the years within cloud, I started out being very broad, high level, understanding everything kind of at that scope. And then I really focused in on, for me particular, I focused in on networking and security. Because I had a background in network security before I moved into cloud. So those, I just kind of took what I knew, transitioned it into the cloud, because what I know from on-prem is obviously doesn't work the same as it does in the cloud. So you do have to transition certain skills that way. But I've really dove into those particular areas and focused on, hey, this is what I know I'm really good at, and this is where I really want to hone in on. And then if there is something that provides ancillary value to those core areas that I'm focused on, then I'll make an effort to really add that into it. So that's kind of been my whole mantra, is how I've been building up to my career. What is my North Star? What is my goal? Is what I want to focus on. And then are there other pieces that I might need to tack on to enhance or improve what I'm ultimately driving towards from a cloud career perspective. And then, yeah, within Azure itself, as we look to build security and build a model going forward, yes, we do have to share something with Azure. And I think ultimately understanding that shared responsibility model is kind of step one. As you're looking at whatever type of services you're running within Azure, whether they be IaaS, PaaS, or whatever other as a service that you're leveraging, because they've got a few now these days. It's important to understand what Microsoft has control of, what do you share jointly, right? And then what is completely your responsibility. So obviously for us, we always know that our identity, our data, right? That's always going to be our responsibility. It's not going to be Microsoft. So we're responsible for our data. We're responsible for our user accounts and the permissions that we give to those accounts and to what access people have into the data and things of that nature. When we go down the stack of, operating systems, updates, things of that nature, right? Microsoft's going to control a good portion of that, but there is going to be some level of split responsibility. So you need to understand what controls Microsoft gives you and how best to effectively apply those controls for your environment so that you're meeting your half of that area from a responsibility perspective, and then building out your, basically your strategy from there.
Yes, absolutely. And I think like if I show people around the share responsibility model docs by the Microsoft team, and I think a lot of credit to the Microsoft team for putting on these wonderful, wonderful, I think, docs material for everyone. So I can look at like we have SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, on-prem, and being on the like the my question like how to build the Azure Cloud Career. By looking at these focused area, like I think everybody in their life they can know a little piece of have little piece of information, like you being the network administrator and the security background, I've been from the development background. But look at the sheer responsibility diagram. You can look at the various part like where you can control and where you can influence more. So I think that's a go-to material, go-to site for everyone who wanted to share the wanted to look into the details of how the share responsibility work. And also for the my next question to you, like Derek, like I think I see right now, like certification is like Google, AWS, Azure, and also the cloud native one is also on the horizon. Like you can see Kubernetes certification, there are four of them right now. Prometheus certification, the news came up. So certifications are in everywhere. What are your tips for the people who are really transitioning to the totally background from like this are not a non-tech guy? What do these certifications are looking for? What the first step of certification they can look into?
Ultimately, I think the first steps of certification they can look into are the fundamentals, right? Irrespective of which cloud provider you go with. So each cloud provider has a fundamental. So Azure fundamentals is their fundamentals. AWS has the cloud practitioner. Google has the digital cloud leader. So there is an entry point for non-technical people who don't necessarily understand cloud technology. And so it really gives them a good overview of what each of the common terms that I think us from a technical perspective take for granted, like what is compute, what is, networking and all those things. And so it goes through those levels and gives you kind of that high level knowledge of what cloud is. There's agnostic certifications for, cloud as well. You mentioned, the CNCF and how they have stuff around Kubernetes. Linux is also like another ancillary thing that I think is a non-tech person, you're looking to get into cloud, having knowledge of Linux, I think is critical. Most enterprises run some form of Linux in the cloud, so it's great to have that knowledge there. And then, CompTIA has Cloud Plus. So yeah, there's a fair breadth of cloud agnostic, but I think as it's what you do in day two of your career, right? So you have kind of the agnostic stuff that'll kind of help you get started from a broad perspective. And then what is it that you do once you kind of land that entry level job? And that's where whatever organization you're in and whatever, they'll probably have a cloud or two of choice. And then you can kind of start honing in on, whether it be Azure, or whether it be AWS or GCP. I'm of a mindset, and this is just my stance, is I find it very difficult. And I know there's people out there who have, multi-cloud certification, right? They have like the 17 Azure certs and the 20 AWS certs. Kudos to them. They obviously have a lot of free time on their hands. I couldn't possibly take all those exams and make sure that I'm deep in every area. So for me, that's kind of where my mantra is whatever area or cloud you want to focus in on, go deep and focus in on that. You're going to be far more valuable to somebody when you're a complete expert in your field and you understand it end to end, versus somebody who knows this huge breadth of thing, but you may not be able to go necessarily as deep as you want. So if I'm coming from a non-tech world, that it would be the advice I would give somebody. Start out broad, see what you like, right? What interests you, where maybe, do you have some comfort in AWS because you've seen it before, or, have you worked with, say, like Google Workspaces, right? Maybe I've been an information worker and I've been playing around with Google Sheets and Google Docs. So maybe Google's more comfortable for you and you might want to dive into that. Or, maybe Excel and Word. So you've interacted with Office 365. So maybe that's more comfortable. So then Azure might be a good path for you. So ultimately, once you find that, and then honestly, I would just I don't want to say put up barriers, but just put a focus on, hey, I want to go deep in that area. I've taken each of the Google and AWS fundamentals because I think for my job, it's important to understand what they're capable of, but I haven't necessarily gone deep in either because Azure is kind of been my cloud provider of choice, and I've gone deep there, and it's been very beneficial for me in that respect.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm also being there. Like I've spent most of my time in my career in the Azure, and very little time around other cloud provider like AWS or Google. So I've spent most of my time in Azure as well. So I'm being on that side as well. And also, I think this is a wonderful website for the people who want to understand how much certification exists. Like you can drill down just to select out what's, like if you're a DevOps engineer, you can click down and it can tell you like these are the in certification. You can look into it. You can drill down to see the beginner level of it, DevOps. So it's been a very wonderful website, and you can drill down to it. So we will talk about during this conversation like how to start as a beginner. And right now, as your key area of focus is network engineering. So if somebody listening to us, if it's been a background if they work on the Azure networking part of it for a very long time, and they want to challenge themselves for the certification, so what sort of certification they can choose for networking and security?
So the way they can challenge themselves from a networking perspective, Microsoft offers 2 networking certifications now, where I think in previous years they offered none. So you had to do either the admin or the solution architect. So obviously the Azure Network Engineer Associate is the primary one. And then there's the Azure Network Troubleshooting Certification, which is a specialty one. It's AZ 720, I believe, is the designation for that one. So you can kind of go in and hone in your overall network troubleshooting skills beyond knowing how to generally set up and manage and monitor network. Yeah, if you click the network engineer, it should show up right there. We're looking at, they don't list it. I'm surprised they list hybrid. Yeah, I think I've got it right over here.
Yes. So I think
So
they're missing.
yeah, the hybrid certification. If I'm dealing with, so they call it designing and implementing or troubleshooting Microsoft Azure connectivity, right? So if I, as a network engineer, need to make sure I'm troubleshooting my express routes, my site-to-site VPNs, whatever that connectivity model that I'm using, right? I need to showcase my expertise in troubleshooting. So that's kind of the add-on benefit certification to being a true network engineer. If my organization is fairly hybrid, which a lot of organizations are, is there value in knowing hybrid Windows Server administration? Absolutely. Am I somebody who touches Windows containers and Windows virtual machines all the time? No, you might be in your role. And so, yeah, it may make sense to be a Windows Server Hybrid Admin Associate in your role. So again, what's, North Star, what can I add in that's going to give me value as to what I do and where to see myself going. So I can see why Microsoft put that in there as a network engineer. Security, there's a whole path for that now, right? SC, right, is the moniker. So there's SC 900, and then there's SC 200, 300, 400, and 100. So, and then there's specific security certifications for both Azure and Microsoft 365, respectively. So you can, dive in with AZ 500. You can dive into MS 500, which is the Microsoft 365 one, and then go through the entire SC track. And honestly, I mean, those I think alone would make you today a highly sought after resource, because you will have showcased your expertise across the whole breadth of Microsoft cloud services that any company would offer you a role fairly quickly, in my opinion. So yeah, those, if I'm a security person, those are the areas that I'm diving into.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is a wonderful learning ride by the Thomas
Thomas,
More.
yeah, Thomas has great websites. I was
Yes.
just joking with him the other day. A friend of mine posted something on Twitter like, "Hey, what got you into Azure?" And Thomas's wife is great. Her and I chat frequently, and so she obviously tagged her husband as somebody who got her into cloud. And so I just kind of jokingly responded, "Not Thomas Maurer," but no, he's a good friend. We've chatted. Great. Offers great advice. So yes, he's absolutely somebody to follow. He posts study guides about all of the various, I think, prominent Azure certifications, and gives you not only the Microsoft Learn content, but the actual Microsoft docs to go find that specific content. And so having that specific knowledge of, hey, here's where it is specifically in our reference docs, is very valuable, because more often than not, that's what the certification exam is looking for you to answer. What does it say in the docs? What is the Microsoft way to answer this question? And so, yeah, it's been very valuable to have him do those guides and post them on there. I know he doesn't do all of them because he's very busy in his new role, but he does try and keep them updated as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the next question from my side is, where I think we're listening to us people, is really like certifications is right now. There's a huge spectrum of certification, and I can see in the LinkedIn or Twitter every day people say we have 15 of certification in Azure, 13 of that depicts how much passionate about you are learning.
Mhm.
But it's also like in the enterprises and the some small startups, they I think they question a lot about this, like, do certification bring in the production grade skills for individuals? Like, if the individual working in the networking and security aspect, if you do a certification and pass that certification, do we think about this individual has those production grade skills to manage the infrastructure and the networking in Azure in a production manner?
So I'll give you my honest answer. No. Are the certifications a great way to showcase that you have a good understanding of it? Absolutely. Does that mean necessarily that person has practical knowledge? No. And so I think we're starting to see a little bit of a shift in in the learning industry to start giving practical hands-on knowledge. One of my mentors and good friends, Mike Pfeiffer, that was the whole reason why he built cloudskills.io, and it became as successful as it was. It wasn't necessarily about passing the certification. It was about, do you understand how to go in over a 6 or 8 week boot camp and spin up a Kubernetes cluster and manage it and be able to configure it and troubleshoot how that's done. And that's really what he built a lot of his courses over. Did he do certification ones? Of course. They're valuable. They're by no means you shouldn't, but you need to also have kind of that practical hands-on thing. And so we see from, say, like the A Cloud gurus and the Pluralsights of the world, right? They're providing labs and hands-on environments for you to go in and actually get hands-on keyboards and start going in there and really getting that practical knowledge. Is it sustainable for them right now to keep up with the current pace? No. So I do think we're going to start seeing a shift in the industry from a learning perspective about how to be more hands-on, more practical about what you do in a day-to-day basis. And then, you know, the certification exams will just be a nice kind of bolt on to say, yeah, I do know my stuff, but here's my GitHub repo that shows that I've been, developing, here's a little list of, hey, I've been contributing into, this project and that project. And I think ultimately that's going to be people's resumes these days. It's either going to be your LinkedIn profile or you're going to be your GitHub profile. And you can, people can see, hey, I've contributed to X amount of projects. Here's how many things I've forked off a master repo and I've started playing with it on my own. I think that's what is going to be the main driver for people, at least in our world, going forward from a learning perspective, is how much hands-on and practical things have you been doing? Certifications are great, but practical and showcasing that you're willing to dig in and learn and go after that is going to be far more valuable, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think there is no comparison to the hands-on guide, because I think right now, as you mentioned, like the GitHub profile, the LinkedIn profile, the Twitter profile, these are their living resume, because people want to see what your area of focus are. You can't list all things in one resume, like where you're spending most of the time. But if you're using Twitter or LinkedIn, people can see like this person has these kind of interest, and if we have these same kind of interests, we can align those interests to build something productive for everyone else in the world. So I think that's going to be your living resume, GitHub and these. And also I think there's a question around like hands-on is no comparison. And if you contribute to some of the open source project, either by forking the repo, either by giving them suggestion or giving some feedback, and people can see your feedback as a valuable asset, they can start answering start answering to your questions. And I think that's a good way. I think, and all of the Azure and AWS and the Google, they're heavily reliant on the open source. You look at the container, and these are available in the Azure, Google, AWS. And if you have a very good hands-on experience and you have ton of contribution into the open source, the container ecosystem, so these people give you more value. They can listen to your insights because you have contributed and spending enough amount of time. So I think I absolutely 100% agreed. And you mentioned the Mike Piper name has been a wonderful. I've been a big fan of Mike Piper as well, and ready to be his back. Like he's starting his own podcast after a very long time being absent in the social media. So
yeah,
he's been a very good
to...
resource for everyone.
Yeah, he went through the acquisition with INE, which has been great, and has helped kind of transitioning that. And he and I were talking, and that's kind of been where his goal was. Is I think the biggest area he saw in tech that was lacking was soft skills. There's so much wealth and experience there from they've been acquired by INE.com. There had been so much technical overload from that perspective. And so, what are the soft skills a lot of us, IT people need to learn? And I think, that's kind of a missing area. We always think of, hey, I need to be, very technical, very hands-on, but how do you interact with the other DevOps engineers, right? If I'm a cloud consultant, I've got to interact with my clients, cloud engineers and DevOps engineers, application folks, right? And so how do I interface with them? How do we communicate? How do we build something together? Because that's another version of a shared responsibility model. I, as a cloud consultant, have to share my responsibility with the other person and kind of help them along to achieve whatever the project is or whatever the milestone it is that we're working towards. And so that is another area where there's just massive gaps in being able to empathize, communicate, and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm super excited for Mike's new podcast shows. I've unfortunately not tuned into episode 1 just yet. I'm really sorry, Mike. I promise I'll be on a plane in a couple of hours. I will listen to it on the plane. But it's all about focusing on, good habits, right? Developing personal growth, mindset, and how do you continually improve and focus in on those things. And we've seen not just in the tech industry, but I think work life in general, huge emphasis on work-life balance, how best to take care of yourself mentally and physically, because there's, burnout has been a huge topic for 2022, right? Great resignation happened. All these people just kind of threw up and were like, we're done. We're tired of all of this. And so people took notice. And so now, mental health has been in a huge spotlight. And so I think we, as folks who have a platform and have this ability to go out there, it's important for us to talk about that and be very honest that it is important. I have my days where I literally, like Mike, I check out from social media. We need to take a care of ourselves, take care of our mental well-being. And then we're able to come out and still perform and work at a level that's expected of us. And so, yeah, I'm super excited for his new show being around that area. I think it's been a long time coming.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I listened to my Cloudskills, some of the podcasts, and I seen some of the conversation around Azure Networking Security, and you've been in the show. So it really
Yep.
been a wonderful information for me, and I think everybody listening to those podcasts, it's been a very valuable information for you. So, like, I think for me, like diving into the DevOps world, into the cloud era, is because of seeing the Mike's Piper, whatever he tweeting, whatever he pushing in the LinkedIn, it's really helped me a lot, because on that time, and 3-4 years back, I've been the web developer at that time. But I see, like, this is my interest right now. I really like about this approach of troubleshooting or deploying the code into the cloud and understanding the virtual machine, how it's working, how the networking part of it. So I think Mike has helped a ton of people with his wonderful work in the community side. So he's been also a Microsoft MVP, and we have a very good number of MVPs. They are always pushing wonderful content in the in for public for free to help you and guide you. So that's, I think, makes Microsoft and Azure community so unique, by helping people all the time in the form of content they are producing, or helping people in social media. So that's wonderful. And also, like, another question I see a lot when I talking into the people's talking to me, or people talking to somebody else podcast, they say, like, we talk about the hands-on stuff, we talk about how the certifications, why they are important, how what and we talk about this concepts of that, that's a certification and hands-on, they have no comparison. You still need to be hands-on with that, to be more polishing your skills. So the enterprises or the small startup, they're building solution on top of Azure. What sort of advice you give to those people for as part of hiring the individual? Plus, what you think is the next era? What is the hottest topic? What are the key challenges they can address by building out their own startup for some problem that people are facing every day in the Azure
Yeah.
or cloud era?
I think from a hiring perspective, I think the emphasis is shifting away from technical and shifting more to soft skills, right? Um, and even, for me, as I look to hire somebody, technical is fine. I can teach technical. All of us can teach technical. Um, the person, having those soft skills is something that I think is a little bit more challenging to find. And it's not that people can't learn them; they absolutely can. What we've been so far up until this point, it's been much harder for people to learn those skills. And so, kind of the earlier people start doing that, the better. Um, as for kind of, you know going in and showcasing that interview process, I think hopefully now, and if this hasn't been espoused enough, be honest, right? um Believe it or not, your hiring manager has been in your shoes 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Now, is it been in your shoes specific to cloud? Probably, maybe or maybe not, I don't know, depends. But we the hiring managers typically, right, can kind of snuff out if you know your stuff, if you don't know your stuff. So the more kind of transparent you are about, yeah, I've kind of done this. I haven't really, delved into it deeply and all that stuff. The better off you're going to be. Because here's what I care about when I'm looking for somebody. Do you fit the culture, right? Do you match kind of the type of person we're looking for? Can you communicate well? Are you able to build relationships with other people to be effective? Because in any organization, it's a team sport. And I was just at a conference earlier on Monday and Tuesday, and we had a fantastic guest speaker who came up. He was a U.S. Navy SEAL, and he talks about their creed and kind of the things that what matters to them most. And I think the SEAL creed, it translates to any other nationalities, kind of special forces. The thing they care about most, team first. It's not about you, right? It's not about you and your buddy. It's about the team. The team comes first always. And so if you as an interviewer can espouse that, hey, I'm a team player and I put my team first so that we can collectively go after something, you're more valuable to me than somebody who is all about me, myself, and I. Yeah, they may be technically a bit smarter. That's great. But then they're going to be a toxic person inside of my team, and that'll ultimately create more problems. Whereas if I bring in a team player who may not be as technical, but is willing to learn, has that growth mindset, they're more valuable to me versus the person who may already be at that level or higher from a technical perspective. So as you're looking to build your careers, you're looking to kind of take it to another level, those are the key things that I think are most valuable today and will be for the next several years. And then to your other point as to where people should focus their technical in, DevOps, absolutely. I can't tell you right now how many clients I'm talking to about DevOps, SRE, chaos engineering. Like all of that is just absolutely on fire right now, and I don't see that going away. And I think you can see it from a community perspective. There are a lot of people out there talking about Kubernetes, containers, or even other orchestration platforms, right? Docker, Pulumi, you name it, right? All of those things, absolutely. Argo is another big thing right now. So Argo CDs, it would be another great thing to learn. So any of those things, absolutely. That, and we are kind of harped on this a little bit already. Security, right? So DevOps, security, I think over the next 18, 24 months, and probably even longer, are probably the two main areas that I would focus in on from a cloud technology perspective for career.
Yes, absolutely, 100% agree. Like there's no other thoughts on that, because this is actually right now the focus of enterprising looking to adopt those solutions, and plus team building some tools on top of Kubernetes and GitOps, and they need your help and they need your expertise. And another question like this, and then we wrap up the discussion, is like how to become a cloud consultant. Like this is the question people talk about a lot. I spent 10 to 13 year or 10 year or 5 year in the cloud. Now I manage enough time to do some kind of consultancy. So what are your tips on how people know you? The first point is people know you. For how to know you, you can talk about the steps to be in the more active in the social media, and plus being all, how to start a consultancy at first and what it pays you. Either you learn something new, either you gain more money, and as a consultant, what should metrics I am be looking for?
Yeah, no, okay. So from a personal branding perspective, get started out on whatever social platform you're most comfortable in. And I think everybody probably is like, well, LinkedIn, I think, still has somewhat of this stigma of being for business. It's not. Are they, as I think pop culture centric as some of the others? No. And that's fine. But ultimately, there's a community in all. And I will caution you as to not do all of it at the get out. You're gonna hate yourself. I know I did, because it's a lot to keep up with. So start out with a platform: Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, YouTube, whatever you want to do, Twitch, doesn't matter. And start posting on a regular basis, even if it's regurgitating Microsoft Docs or Google Docs or AWS, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. And just give your thoughts. Ultimately, what people care about are your thoughts. I don't want to hear Thomas Maurer's thoughts. I already know what his thoughts are. I can go look them up. I know Mike's thoughts. I can go look them up. I want to know what you think. Even if, Microsoft stated a position, just give your opinion. Nobody's going to, burn you for it. And it's okay for people to have differences of opinion. And I think the ultimate thing that I caution people the most on when they're getting started is people are going to disagree with you, and that's okay. As long as it's a healthy disagreement, right? If you're able to converse back and forth with that person in a respectful manner. If you see that person not doing that, then just don't respond. Don't engage them. Don't give them the time of day. But kind of building that schedule, being able to, post daily, post, whatever you have time for. Just, go to Microsoft Docs. I'll speak in my own sense, right? That's how I got started on LinkedIn. I just went to Microsoft Docs. I reposted, shared a link, and I offered my opinion on what I thought about VNets or what I thought about virtual machines and things of that nature. And you'll just, slowly, and I still do that today. By no means have I let that go. Do I post other content? Absolutely. But that's a great starting point. And you need to have your idea of where you want to go, right? We talked about this earlier, like, what is my North Star? What is my direction? And hopefully it'll align in with whatever your focus is as a cloud person, right? So hopefully, right, share your learning journey. That's another great way to get started. Hey, I'm studying for X certification. Here's what I learned. Did I go through my study process, right? Those have been very effective blog series. A good friend of mine, Dwayne, has been posting about his AWS learning journey, right? Huge Azure guy, been Azure for a long time. And part of his new role is to know about multi-cloud security. So he's been taking AWS and Google security tracks, and he's sharing his thoughts and experiences. So take that example, share your experiences. What are you learning as you go through certification or, your journey to be something? Because believe it or not, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands of other people who are going through the exact same thing, and you may help them. They may run into a similar issue that you did, and you can help solve that challenge for them. So that's how I would get started. And then ultimately what it morphs into will be something of your own. Mine is going to be a very different personal journey than whatever yours is. But as you get started, you'll kind of see what it is that you want to focus in on and what you want to do. And it becomes a very, I hate to say this, DevOps-like process, right? You're going to plan it out. You're going to do that kind of little loop of building it, deploying it, and then you're going to get that feedback from your audience, and then you're going to start it all over again, right? And it's just going to be that infinite level of loop. So yes, if I'm not espousing that I'm not a DevOps person, I'm unsure what else to do. From a consultancy's perspective, start out as a freelancer, honestly. A lot of people who started their own businesses. I hate to pick on Mike, but I'm going to pick on Mike. Mike worked at Microsoft. Mike worked at AWS, right? He had a normal day job, but the reason why he ultimately branched out and started up Cloudskills and all those others, right? He was doing community work. He was doing training on the side, and he saw an area of need that people didn't have the hands-on practical stuff, right? And so he took a leap of faith. And if you want to start your own consultancy, that's what it's, going to be. You have to be willing to take that leap of faith and leave kind of the stability of corporate working environment to start something. Are you going to make a ton of money out of the gate? No. If that's what you expect, I'm sorry. I'm going to burst your bubble. It's going to be a lot of hours. You're not going to get paid a ton out of the gate. But what we see from that spirit is your passion. And that's what makes somebody ultra successful. That's what made Mike very successful with Cloudskills, was his passion. He saw an area of need. he was very passionate about learning and teaching because he was doing it on the side. And he learned a lot of skills from AWS and Microsoft when he worked at those respective companies. And he said, hey, I can do this. I can whatever. And he's talked about me about the very first meeting he had for Cloudskills to sell kind of like a business learning license. And he was like terrified. And he had to go in and basically pitch this company. And that's, again, where these soft skills come in, right? Pitching somebody on your passion, your idea. Hey, here's what makes my platform unique. Here's, I'm going to solve this challenge for you, and it's going to make your people better. And when Mike closed that first deal, the rush of accomplishment and success that you're going to feel should fuel you to keep going, right? And then just keep building and building and building. And people will gravitate towards that. And I think if you're looking to start a consultancy, that's what you need to identify. Where am I passionate about? Where am I seeing a need in the market? And just 2 feet in, go after it, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Right? Is probably the biggest mistake I see a lot of other consultancies make. Be willing to bring in other people to help you out, not necessarily as like full-time employees or anything like that, but just ask for advice. Hey, I'm trying to do this as part of my consultancy, but kind of what's your thoughts? What would you do? I'm part of a good community of kind of business-minded folks who we talk on a weekly basis, and all about cloud. And we share our thoughts, where are people having challenges from, a personal branding perspective, or sharing their thoughts, or, what's going on with their consultancy or where they work, right? And get that feedback from people who are at that same level, or maybe a little bit higher, or maybe a little bit lower, and just kind of getting, all those outside views and data points in. And you could say, hey, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Or maybe, yeah, that is a different strategy. And just, having that community support to help you out, because you don't have to go at your consultancy alone. You can bring in people, a strong core group of people to give you advice and give you direction on how best to move forward. And I think if you look at the Twitters of the world, the Facebooks of the world, and all that stuff, Mark Zuckerberg didn't start out by himself. He had 2 other people helping him. And then, right. And I love the movie Social Network, right? And then he did this little hackathon, and you saw all the people in that little room trying to be a part of this. Like, that's what I mean. You had all this little community and these things to build. And that's ultimately how Facebook it up. And even the very first meeting that Facebook ever had, right? I forgot the founder's name of Napster that helped him out, but he helped him broker that meeting. Zuckerberg had to have help to get it done. So don't sit there and think like, these tech pariahs that we idolize, right? Bill Gates is another example. Bill Gates didn't do it on his own, right? He had Paul Allen and Steve Ballmer, right? There were other people. So if I am looking to launch my own consultancy, step 1, what community people can I help bring in to help me? Not as, necessarily employees, but just people to offer me advice and guidance. And then start kind of that freelance, that side work, start building stuff up, right? I can work for other clients. They can see the work I do, the value that I do, and identify the area of need and be willing to make that plunge. You're going to put in a lot of hours. The initial return may seem, not great, but hopefully as you land projects, land deals, right, it's going to build that mental thing of, oh yeah, look, and then, right, and it's just going to be kind of this compounded thing for you.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful insight, like for everybody listening to us, because I think that is absolutely the key. If you start this consultancy, but look at the community, you have some friends to help you, give you some feedback. Otherwise, that is going to be a loneliness. You feel stressed. You see, like, people are not letting me in, not telling me like about the stuff I'm doing, good or bad, and you assuming that the stuff you're working is going to be hit when you put into the public. It's not going to be behaving that way. So I think you have some friends. So I think this is absolutely a mistake. Not, I think 90% of people in the consultancy world, they're doing, they have no one to give us a feedback. And I think all of the open source project is that's going to be so much hit and so much demand we see as of today because of the community. Because if those projects are in just one Iceland, let's say in US or Europe, but not from Asia, so we don't have contribution from else of the world. But right now you can contribute to these projects and make your presence available there. So I think this is absolutely 100%. You have some friends, you have some communities, and you share your thoughts with the people, and you being comfortable by sharing your thoughts and not just think about like what other people say tell you, because you need to be know that you have some mistakes as of today, and you need to be prepared for these mistakes. And
Yeah,
you not be just not electing like why do a mistake. Mistakes should happen, and it's going to be happen if you are doing good things. I think you should do mistakes.
yeah,
Otherwise, you are not doing good work if you are not
yeah.
doing mistakes.
There's the quote, right? I think hopefully this has been, or I don't want to say expounded enough between us, but it's out there a lot, right? People, the fear of not doing or not trying is ultimately what holds a lot of other people back. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is merely a teacher, and that's how you have to look at it. If you do something and it doesn't work out, great. That's okay, because guess what? I can learn what went wrong and then make that better and go at it again. Um, think of global sports icons that we know: Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, all those people. You know what separated them from everybody else? They failed. They failed quite often, but they kept at it. The failure wasn't defining them. It was, hey, I tried this, didn't quite work out. Okay, let me tweak it, right? And then it was relentless focus on their area, right? I want to be the best at this, so I'm going to relentlessly own and focus in on the basics. And I think, Michael Jordan is notorious for that. People always asked him, why he was so good at it. He's like, I honestly always focused on the fundamentals, because if I didn't have a strong foundation, all the other stuff would be meaningless. It would crumble, right? Like a building. If a building doesn't have a solid foundation, guess what's going to happen to it? It's going to just cave in and collapse. So if you're looking at starting something, building something, it's that hyper focus on the fundamentals, the basics, and everything else will come as long as you are continually keeping after it. And it's okay to struggle, it's okay to fail. And I think that's where community, as we talked about, comes in and provides you that support and that help you need. It's okay to reach out and say, hey, this isn't quite working, or this is kind of struggling. Like, give me your thoughts, give me your opinions. People want to see you succeed. I love to see people succeed. I tell my students all the time when I'm teaching them, post on LinkedIn, post on Twitter. Let me know how you did on your exam, whether you passed or failed. Tell me. I'm here to help you succeed. I don't want to see you fail or never take the exam. I want to see you get to where you want to go. Because as you succeed, right, it's the tide that lifts all boats. Everyone thought, I guess a good example would be cloud would end data centers. Did the exact opposite and made data centers even more, right? So it's been that same rising boat. It's the same methodology, and same purpose. If you're going into a certification, whether you're going into consultancy, reach out, have a community of people to be there and help you. And you will be, I promise you, far more successful and far less stressed about it, when you have that kind of surrounding environment. And it's okay if constructive criticism, right? You want a community of people who are honest with you and transparent with you, offering constructive criticism, not just, I don't want to say hate, but just negative feedback, right? Those people we can tune out. But people who are saying, hey, I hear what you did with this. I don't think that was the right approach, but right. But they always offer you a way to solve the problem. And that's how I tell people. Always ask me, like, how do you discern between people who are just being negative for negative sakes and people who are offering constructive criticism? People who offer you constructive criticism are offering you a way to solve the problem, not sit there and just tell you that you're wrong. Yeah, I don't think you should have done this, but here's how I would have gone about it, and here's how maybe you should try and do it, right? And they're offering you a solution. because they care. If they're not offering you a solution, they don't care. They're just being negative, and you tune them out. Look for people who offer you a way or a solution or a different viewpoint on how to solve your challenge.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And these are absolutely. I think people have to have these thoughts in their mind, because when they're first talking in public, they see some see a very good response, some see a very negative response, and they can stress up why this is happening to me. Somebody else is very popular on the internet and not happening to me all the time. So I think you have to make those balance in your life, like what is happening. So I think we are lucky in 2020 students. I think I've talked to Kelsey Hightower and the Google people and the Azure people, and they tell me like you, like me, Simon, is who are so lucky in 2022 that you have so many ways to challenge yourself. You can either contribute to the open source project, you can run a blog post, you can tell people on social media, I'm learning this, you can share your learning journey. But me as a Kelsey Hightower or the Azure icon in this industry, they tell me we don't have this ability. We don't have these kind of resources when we started about. And when we have some kind of difficulty, we have very small resources to help us educate like where we are doing wrong. And we keep on doing wrong by adding this wrong knowledge actually help us like this is the way last time I failed. Let's try another way, then fail, let's try another way. So I think we as in 2022 people as students are really lucky that we have a wider community. You look at the Kubernetes community, everybody in like one, there is 100,000 people in there. You look at the Docker community, there is so many people in there.
Oh
You
yeah,
look at the
yeah,
Azure community, so many
millions. Yeah.
MVPs.
Oh yeah, millions.
A lot of absolutely a lot of people in there, and they're all helpful. Like you putting on the content, like Jarek is putting on a wonderful content, Mike Piper doing a hands-on workshop, Thomas Marr putting on his website, Tim Warner is doing something else, making courses available on the Plural side, and they all
Yep.
help us at the end of the day because we don't have this technical knowledge in the working. But when you look at the courses and the material, we can see like we can see this problem by look at the Derek Smith article. Let's solve that way because he's more educated than me. So let's solve that way. So I think this is wonderful story in being a Azure, and that's why I choose Azure in I think 2016 to onward, because when I stuck, I have so much resources to understand where I do wrong. And that time, AWS, Google, they have some difficulties understanding the docs and the materials. But as of today, like Azure docs are all being wonderful. I put the link in the chat. So these are the most valuable. Like docs are Microsoft is absolutely a great team who behind that they put on wonderful resources. And also Derek has wonderful podcast on the Cloudskills FM. I share the link with you later in this chat box in the YouTube. So the final thoughts, like Derek, what's your plans for next closing on this month,
What are
closing
my
on this year?
plans for the rest of the year in 2023? My plans are, I want to finish up sharing some more guides and thoughts on Microsoft security exams. So stay tuned. I have some more blog posts coming around that. I have another blog series that I'm doing around CI/CD pipeline security, because I think, as we talked about, DevOps being a huge thing. So definitely want to share my thoughts out with regard to that. And then starting in a few weeks, I'll have a LinkedIn Live and YouTube show called The Cloud is Calling. So that'll be started. And then we have the Azure Back to School event starting next month. So myself and Dwayne are running that this year. And so we have 69 speakers for this year's event, which is the most we've had. So literally there'll be at bare minimum 2 and some days 3 speakers going every day for the entire month of September, sharing their knowledge, their expertise on a just absolute huge range of not only Azure topics, but even just cloud topics. Like I think there's a talk in there about whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And I think they, are using an AI ML model to really finally answer that question. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? So stay tuned for that. And then we have a new community launching called Gimme Cloud Talks. So there'll be some stuff coming up around Gimme Cloud Talks. Myself, Nick Coiler, and Dwayne and a few others will be running those. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, a lot of great community stuff coming. And I guess, the final thing I'm working on is I will have my first LinkedIn learning course coming out soon. So I'm super excited about that. I've been working really hard getting that done. So stay tuned for that course launching very soon on LinkedIn Learning.
Wow, wonderful. These are wonderful news for me. Wonderful. I will be looking at the courses first as well to make more education around Azure, all of these kind of stuff. This is wonderful news for me. I would love to see your live stream and these kind of activities because I'm missing Mike and you in the past, and finally saw you being more active. This will give me more passion.
I will not confirm or deny if Mike is not a guest on that thing. But I will say one of my big things on the Cloud is Calling is I have a daughter. She is 5. She literally is a mini version of myself. But my first 4 guests are women in tech, and I did that on purpose. I want to be very purposeful and highlighting that we need women in tech. A lot of the women in tech that we have out there, Holly, Isadora, and many others, are absolutely fantastic, phenomenal people. So I think the more we can help advocate and be champions for them to bring more of that in there, we absolutely need to do. And so that is why my first 4 guests will be women in tech, and talking about a wide range of cloud topics. So yeah, stay tuned. I'm super excited about that.
Absolutely. More thumbs up. That's a great way to start a season. To be diversity and inclusion, to have people tell them like these are the people doing great stuff, and keep them motivated about the stuff they are doing, because some of the people need motivation. And if somebody asking them to be a guest on their show or to be a part of the communication, this help them boost their motivation, and inside you can see the feeling like to have them continue this journey that your stuff that you are doing. So this has been a wonderful episode with you. Like I've been trying to find Azure people a lot on this channel because I'm working more in the Azure part of it, but it's been a wonderful learning experience for me. And I hope everybody listening to us have gained sufficient knowledge about the Azure and other soft skills that you've been described during this show. So I will definitely have you, might be another episode with the Azure Networking and Security, a deep dive, or see how the stuff works and do a hands-on of these kind of stuff. We'll definitely get in touch with you. Or might be if we go to the KubeCon and see near you in some of the conferences, we definitely want to meet. Definitely want to meet you.
I think I don't know if I'll be at KubeCon this year. I pretty much am wrapping up, I think, the majority of my travel for the end of August. I want to be home, spend more time with my family, things of that nature. So I think I have 1 or 2. I have 1 conference in November that I'll be at, and 1 in December. But other than that, I'll be taking a break from travel for the rest of the year. But no, happy to be on. I would love to do a deep dive into Azure networking. That would be awesome. So yeah, anytime you want to set that up, would love to.
Yes, absolutely. This is definitely in the plans, and we'll try to make it possible as soon as possible to have people show the Azure networking and security skills. So thank you very much, Derek. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the show, and we'll be in touch with you another episode in the future as well. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the podcast or watching to us on the YouTube channel. Hope to see you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and continue doing great work in your life. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.